Hello, welcome back to the Handstandcast with me, Emmet Lewis, and my co-host, Mikael Christiansen. How's it going, Mikael?
Exactly same as last time.
Exactly the same as last time.
Exactly 100%.
It's interesting.
So can't complain again.
Can't complain again. We should probably pretend we're not recording this on the same day and as the last mini-sode and go like, oh, Mikael, your model is finished now for your origami. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks... there's loads of lines on the paper at least. So, and I've folded a lot more tiny birds. I think I'm over 300 or something.
Awesome. You're going to level up. Like, it's basically origami grinding.
Yeah, this is grinding. It's just like, I'm at level, 30 now maybe, 25, something like that.
Nice.
Never ends.
How many birds do you have to fold to get the sword of infinite truths?
I think, I mean, I could technically wish for it at 1,000 birds, but didn't work last time. So
I'm just a humble paladin. Level 20, I can deliver the sword of infinite truths. So anyway, we go to another one of your mini-sodes with your questions and our answers. If you want to send us some questions, DM them to Handstand Factory on Instagram, or you can use the contact form on our website, handstandfactory.com. Or you can also do audio questions on anchor.fm if you want to be one of these voices on the radio, and you can play your episode back to your mother and go, look, Mom, I'm on the radio. And that would be cool. Cool. So
right.
We have a few questions about blocks, actually, that we grouped together.
Yeah.
So, Miguel, what are the benefits of training on blocks?
You get to stand on blocks. And once you're good at standing on blocks, it's easier to do one arms on them. That is, and they prepare you for doing canes, which is again slightly easier than blocks again. But on average, for most people that do one arms, blocks will become easier than floor at some point or other, even though some people are very put off by blocks and don't get them in the beginning.
Yeah.
I basically know no one who is actually better on floor than on block. You just, once you can balance on both, the grip on the block gives you a couple of more dimensions of saving in the hand that doesn't need to be done in the shoulder.
Yeah.
So you can be much more precise on the block, really.
Yeah, it's also one of the things I really like, just on a slightly different one for the block, is or also parallettes. But a lot of, we just look at tendonitis as an overuse injury, and working same fixed plane, particularly when you're learning or if you're prone to it or had a history of it. If you're always training on the floor, you're always giving your forearms the exact same stimulation and stress in the same plane. And alternating training on blocks and training on floor can be a good way of just keeping the stimulation novel in training and changing, even on two arms. I like people start using blocks from very early in their journey, so you don't get to that situation where you're like, I have a really good floor handstand, I can press, I can do all these things, and then you're like, okay, well, my forearms are a bit too getting overtrained from floor only. And then you're like, oh, use blocks, and I can't balance on blocks. And you have to go all the way back to heel pulls and toe pulls.
Yeah, exactly. Or you go you can do tons of stuff. It's like, oh no, I have to go on block. I don't know how to do it. No, just learn the fucking block.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good for you, basically. So start on it as early as you can, basically.
Yeah.
And no, it's not particularly much harder, even though some people might experience it as such in the start.
Yeah, I think basically the people who experience it are ones who are already pretty good on the floor. Then you say go on blocks, and they're like, oh no, it's terrible. It's just you just have to learn a different balance mechanism. But once you get it, it's just okay, I can do blocks.
It's very similar in the way. I remember my first handstand class, I had to stand on blocks, and my forearms were so pumped. I was dying after just one set. The warm up set I had to do was the teacher Corey, he told me he just wanted to see what I could do. And I wanted to show him my one arm, and he was like, we're gonna start at the beginning. And I was like, god damn it. And I didn't know anything about alignment or anything. It was just some b-boy. And then he had me do a 2-arm on blocks, and I did 40 seconds, and I was dying. And I was like, whoa, okay, I'm just gonna shut up and listen to what he has to say. And then
yeah, there's definitely just as a counterpoint the way we teach one arm, there's definitely some schools of learning one arms that the block, it's basically you're just going to do block walks up and down for months to get the one arm.
I'm not too big of a fan of block walks too early, because they'll like you can walk the blocks with garbage technique.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to do straight arm support, one arm with garbage technique. It just basically doesn't work.
Yeah.
And at the point where you can do good fingertip support and good straight arm support, it means you're able to get to the point where you grab the block, or like you're able to do block walks essentially by moving the hand away, putting it on the floor, moving back over to the other hand, and so on. Like you basically have built the hip placement and the shoulder integrity to be able to do them. So they're great. There's a great exercise, but it's an exercise and it's not like necessarily directly something that teaches you the one arm. So it's certainly useful, but you need to be able to do the other steps as well to be able to do them efficiently.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those ones. Yeah, I bring them in for conditioning for my students from time to time, but they're normally able to have good success on 4-finger supports for about 20 seconds before I consider it.
Yeah, it's just like why bother doing an exercise where you just fall a ton?
Yeah.
And if you have a teacher, you can walk some blocks, again, good for the conditioning and for the push, but you need to be able to place your hips correctly.
Yeah. Hip placement first. We kind of answered question 2, which was at what stage would it be suggested to use blocks? Whenever you feel like it, get used to them earlier, as we said earlier.
Basically.
Yeah. Okay, number 3. Here's an interesting one, actually. What is the hand position for blocks, and do they alter your center of gravity?
No, they don't. Like I remember I heard this once, like by a rather prominent teacher who said that, like, yeah, handstands on blocks are different than on floor because your shoulder position needs to be different. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like
it's an interesting one on that one, actually. I can remember one of the girls from Circus Space. I can't remember exactly who. But on floor, there's an aerialist. So aerialists are always tight, as we know, and just jacked in the upper body in ways that I wish I could be. But her handstand on the floor was just a bit garbage. No, not garbage. She could hold a handstand. She could do things. Sorry, it's terrible to say garbage. But it was just closed shoulders. It was always kind of closed and kind of with a mild arch in the thoracic spine. But if you put her on blocks and parallettes, her handstand would just go instantly completely straight. So
wrists
maybe
then or something.
Yeah, wrists probably would have been it. But the wrists were like, she was super hypermobile, like super flexible in most directions. So like had high.
The thing I have a problem with understanding, like, it might be that like it changes something technically or like in the feeling for a person, but like the 90-degree bend at the knuckle of the fingers, I can't see how that changes much of the rest of the position. And then on the other hand, it's kind of like you can grab onto a block and do a handstand and release the fingers so they are de facto in the same position as in a handstand on the floor, except you aren't gripping and your shoulders do not change position. So like I don't think they do too much. And like in terms of your center of mass, like it should stay in the same place. Like if you are comfortable with both surfaces, like it shouldn't change significantly. At least like when I do any type of 2-arm work, like I have never been able to feel the difference between block and floor.
Yeah.
Whereas when on 1 arms, I just feel like I have a lot more force to exert from the hand as I balance on one. And for hand position, do whatever you feel comfortable with. Most people have 2 fingers in front, the index and the long finger in front.
Yeah.
Some people, I including me, have 3 fingers. So the index, the long, and the ring finger in front. And like not long ago, I gave a friend of mine, gave her the advice that like she said like, yeah, but what about 1 finger? And I was like, nah, no one does 1 finger. I said, and then she sent me a video of a Russian girl doing like spinning 1-arm flags on a block, and guess what, she had 1 finger in front. And I was like, I stand corrected. So it also works, probably because that girl was better than me. So it's largely a thing of preference, but 2 fingers seems to be the most common, at least.
Yeah, that's what I take as well. 2 fingers is normally where we start. But just, get used to it. Make sure your block suits your hand size as well. Will be one of the things you need.
Yeah. That
2 big blocks are kind of annoying, too small are also annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, so we can also drop a little teaser about what we're working on. Is we are going to be releasing Handstand Factory blocks at some point in the near future, getting some custom made, some nice designs. And we'll also, we are getting, someone's seen some of the art we had done with the girl Paylene for some of our stickers and stuff. We'll also be getting a manual with all things in kind of a small homage to these like 1960s and 1970s exercise manuals you get. So that's going to be cool when that gets finished. It's a little project we're working on. But other than that, blocks. Yeah, use your blocks. Enjoy them. I might even use my blocks today.
And next one.
Okay. Please discuss progressing from getting splits warm to getting them cold. Is training oversplits necessary to get flat when cold? It's when we have to basically define like what do you mean by cold as well. Like there is this kind of fantasy a lot of people have where it's like, I'll get out of bed and literally before I've even taken a piss be able to do splits. And that's rare. It's honestly rare to get that level of flexibility. It's definitely possible, but we just know that there is circadian biorhythms and that you will be tighter in the morning. And you can warm up, a bit, and then, 30, 40 minutes after you wake up, you should be able to display your flexibility. It will change day to day based on what you're training as well. Like some days you'll be super tight and other days you won't be. So there's this as well to watch out for. Generally, it's also, if we're talking about middle splits or are we talking about front splits? Middle splits, I am very wary of people training over middle splits because a huge amount of people's hip capsules cannot do an over middle split, and you're just going to put too much stress onto your joint and your inner labrum of your hip. So if you can get tested with a hip scour test or a modified hip scour for that, if you can find me in person, I can do it for you. So this thing with front splits, getting over front split is just useful. Getting over pancake is useful as well. The more you have, like if you think about my split, my flat split, my flat pancake is my 100%. That's my all-out max that I get after doing 5 or 6 sets of stretching. Well, it's like your all-out max deadlift, your all-out max anything is not going to happen every single time. If you have a bit of excessive strength, so it's like, okay, I can do a pancake, but I could do a pancake isometric with a person sitting on me and I can resist the strength. Then if you'll have an excess of strength in that position, you'll be able to display it at lower intensities. Same with pushing the split. If even if your front split isn't flat, say you've got all the way down to the back of the knee with the front leg and the back hip is kind of similar. Training over front splits can just be that next over limit that pushes you to getting flat because you've got okay, I can do an over front split isometric or trained it. Let's increase the leverage. And then I'll get my split, so it'll make it more likely. But, you can also just train the split to the point where, it's always this idea, we need to train the ability, the capacity to show the split, but then we need to start, reducing the mental intention that goes into doing this kind of exercise. So generally what I'll have people do is okay, we can do an isometric middle split and we get flat to the floor. It's really hard. This is when I go back all the way to our basic relaxed stretching and just start doing it in a very informal, casual manner and just go, I just want you to do the split between your handstand sets. Just get into it and feel it out. And just doing it with this incredibly relaxed focus, relaxed breathing, trying to relax, keep your glutes on if you need it or keep the hip flexors on, light contractions. This will basically get you to the point where it just becomes habitual to the body to do a split. So
yeah, one thing I find fascinating with that is the doing it from cold, etc. Like you say, it's kind of this fantasy and why on earth, what is so important about it? And I guess it's this idea that, then I can do anything at any time without any warm-up, etc. Yes, it works fine when you're 19, but you're not going to be 19 all of your life. And it's that I'm not saying that you will just deteriorate and not be able to do things while cold when you're older, but what I'm saying is that you don't need to be able to do absolutely everything while cold. All it'll do is just be kind of the one thing you can say to one up people. Well, I can do that while cold. Who gives a shit? It's good to have an ability to do things without having to spend 100 years warming up, but readying your body or readying yourself for doing things is in my opinion a good thing. Like
Yeah.
making sure that you are in focus for what you're going to do. And I find it interesting this with flexibility, and because I've seen a lot, we have talked about that before as well in terms of this like isometric heavy or heavy isometrics into splits versus what you can display with no weight.
Yeah.
And I remember like early on when I met Emmet, like I remember I asked you that like, why is it that I see so many circus people? Like circus people have like in that kind of culture, there's very little particular methodologies for how you work up your splits with this and that protocol and like isometrics of this and that kind and advanced exercises. People just sit around in splits a lot. And like if you get questions about flexibility, it's basically stretch, what people will say. And this is kind of like scoffed and laughed upon by a lot of kind of the interwebs community of like, oh, those methods are so bad. But why are they so good at splits? Why are they so like, because it's not only are they good at splits, they're extremely good at demonstrating and using that flexibility consequently in what they do. So this is why you see like when you see really good hand balancers or acrobats with like their massive ass splits on display in a handstand in a very relaxed manner. Like I've seen so many people that are demonstrating these like even rather cold splits where they just glide down in an isometric where they kind of they need that resistance of the body to get down into it, and they have the strength on the inside of the thighs and stuff so they can get down and they can hold it. But ask them to split their legs or straddle or pancake in a position where you have to lift the legs, like the knees are bent and kind of they're not able to display and the use of the flexibility in the kind of manner that we are actually wishing to use it. So then it just becomes like, I can do the splits, but can you actually use it for anything? And in my opinion, at least, if you're not able to use like splits flexibility, is a rather useless thing unless you are wishing to use that for particular athletic things. So like this is an area that at least like I'm not the expert on flexibility here, but it's really the question that like I've had for a long time, and where you see that people with the ability to chill in a split for a very long time. Hello, Morgan and Josh, for example. Like you'll see them just sitting around in a massive splits, just like texting on the phone. Like it's not a big deal. And guess what happens when they go to the handstand? That split is still there. While Mr. Muscle Dude, who can get into a heavy ass split, and then you go to handstand and there's literally no split there. I remember once in Netherlands, I saw this guy. He got into a deeper split than me when he was holding 20 kilos. And it was looked great. And then he went to handstand, and like when he straddled his leg, it didn't even look like a straddle. It looked like a small straddle, like as if he tried to do a small straddle. It was rather uncanny how large of a difference there was when only gravity was pulling his legs down versus like his entire body weight.
Yeah, this is you touched on a lot of interesting points there. Actually, I'm gonna break a few of them down. So it's one of these things that kind of is the informative side to the modern methods of mobility syllabus I have. Is that kind of, I would ask people like, how do you get flexible? And I was like on a quest to become more flexible, and I was getting all these kind of answers. Oh, you just stretch more and you do this and you sit around and that. And then that wasn't really getting the results. So I started looking at what people were doing. And if you look at the way, say, a circus obviously was the first exposure, but then I found the same in dance, in like martial arts would have high kicks and stuff. If you look at the way like people actually use their bodies in these methods, the flexibility, it's an environment that encourages the use of flexibility in a highly variable manner with no focus actually on the flexibility other than just like the completion of a task, or the task could be an expression of something, a high kick, a aesthetic quality you're going for, geometric quality of the body. And this is what people are doing. They're just constantly doing this, and it's not like I'm doing a split now. It's more like I'm trying to get this to do that, or I'm trying to kick this pad, or I'm jumping in the air and I need to go into split wide because the choreographer said I had to do that. And this kind of informal use of the flexibility is what is really develops it much more past a certain point than just stretching your splits. It's also like we have to get, there's specific flexibility preparation. A lot of people confuse this with general flexibility preparation, which is the reverse of what you would think about in strength training. General flexibility training or specific flexibility training is I can do an isometric split with heavy weights. And then your body begins to get really good at doing isometric splits with heavy weights and will need the weight to get into the split. Whereas general flexibility preparation, I will train all different qualities of flexibility, dynamic, static, active static, all these kind of ways of training it in a very general and also relaxed manner, and have a discipline that takes care of these kind of needs as well. And then I'll just be more flexible and it'll be more accessible, because my flexibility is a skill as much as a thing, as an exercise. So you just have to bear that in mind. It's also like, it is one of those things that's like habituation. Like it's, everyone thinks it's an exercise that develops your flexibility. It's not. It follows very strictly the biopsychosocial model. Like if you're in an environment what places a high value on flexibility and mobility and aesthetics in these positions, then guess what? You will get more flexible by just being in this environment. It's kind of funny just to watch, like if you take take the tight guys we know in circus, really tight, who'd be tight fascia type and tight muscle type, this kind of type. They're much more flexible than anyone you'd see in CrossFit. Why? Because value is placed on flexibility in these environments. So they train it more. They'll be in one that's more supportive. You're not just that weird person going over the stretch for 30 minutes, or you're not that weird person who's like practices holding their leg up at a certain angle. Or you're not that person who's just like, I'm going to practice rolling around on a floor to use my flexibility in some specific way because I want to throw a ball and catch it while looking in a certain manner. So these kind of environmental factors go in a huge amount to your flexibility. And the expectations of the environment as well play a big part of this. So sum up, use your flexibility more, train it more, but also, to go back to the warm-up one as well, actually, that Mikael touched on as well. There's an interesting passage in Stretching Scientific by Thomas Kurz where he's talking about, like, his one of the big spiel of the book is like display maximum flexibility wherever he has a little warm-up routine you do in the morning of leg swings and stuff like that. You do that, and then he kind of mentions that's how you're able to display your close to maximum range. And he's just like, and this is really useful if someone mugs you and you need to high kick them to the face, because you can do it. But if you're going to do a full training session, you should take the time to warm up properly with, like, joint rotations, light jogging, kicks, lower intensity versions of what you're doing, because it doesn't make sense just to go in and go like, okay, I can do my splits, but I'm not actually warming up properly. So, there's a lot more to a warm up than just being able to do the move. Yeah. And then he also kind of drops is like, you don't have to spend ages warming up your flexibility doing 20, 30 minutes of stretches. You just do one set of isometric stretches and your flexibility is there. So, it's read the book. It's quite an interesting book. Well worth it. Cool. I think that kind of covers it. I think we rambled. Did we ramble enough, though? That's the question.
I think it was like adequate ramble.
Yeah. Number 5. What lower body exercises do you recommend for gymnasts, and how often?
I'm not that well versed in gymnastics in that sense, so I guess you have more input there.
Yeah,
I just know that, like, loads of just thought one channel I want to mention for that can be a guy that I had when I was in circus school. He was the gymnastics teacher there. Daniel Sundell is his name. He's a Swedish guy. I will find so we can link his Instagram, because at least I know that, like, he posts a lot of, like, exercises for young gymnasts and stuff that are, like, quite particular for gymnastics. Loads of strange stuff that I would never imagine, but that, like, are, like, he's strictly a gymnastics teacher, so he has probably, like, loads of, like, particular ones at least. So I'll find his Insta and that.
Cool.
In the description below. But
I can talk about this one loads.
Yeah.
So it's one, like, we just have to actually look at, like, what do you mean by gymnast? Do we mean a competitive gymnast, or do we mean someone who does recreational gymnastics? Two very, very, very different things. Generally, we also have to look at, like, what is the volume of tumbling this person is doing? What is the plyometric height they're aiming for? Like, how high are they jumping? How much vaults are they doing? how much sprinting. It's one of these fallacies. People think, oh yeah, gymnasts do pistols and that's how they get strong legs. Well, actually, you'll probably do 50 to 100 tumbling passes in a training session, starting from very basic kind of like forward rolls all the way to more powered stuff. You will also be jumping on a trampoline. You will also be sprinting down a vault track. Like all these kind of things add up, and people kind of forget that and fetishize certain exercises, saying like that's what does it. But generally, for gymnasts and acrobats and tumblers I train, so we will look at the volume of jumping. Then generally we will train just once a week with resistance training. So this will mean squats, deadlifts, single leg work. A very basic format, very low volume. So thinking sets of 3 to 5, good technique. It's one of those things we're trying to get the benefits of resistance training without becoming a weightlifter. So there's a lot of benefits to resistance training, but there's also a lot of highly specialized technique that goes into being a weightlifter. So you have to watch out for that. And obviously you need good technique, but we just need to be a bit stronger. We need to progress on that, and we need to not become an expert at squatting. I made the mistake of this one actually when I was in circus school. I got hooked on squatting and my legs got super big. I remember in like second year, my quads were jacked. They were immense. It was awesome. I looked great. But it made tumbling so hard. Like layouts and stuff were just so difficult because I couldn't kick my legs around fast enough. So these kind of things, it was just like, it was funny because like I still had all my height from back tucks and stuff like that, but it's just like things were slow to rotate. It's like I had to stop training legs for a while until they shrank a bit, take up jogging. It was great fun. But so this kind of thing we do, have to think about, like we need the legs to be strong. We don't need them to hypertrophy a huge amount, though a bit is good. It's also like you can think about remedial stuff that doesn't really get a lot of time on attention in gymnastics. So calf raises, VMO specific exercises can be useful. All these kind of things. It's kind of one of these bigger, complicated questions to answer. Then it's also like we do also have to think of like what also is lower body exercises as well, or leg raises and all these kind of moving the legs through space. What we would think about like, oh, I'm using my split in space. I'm kicking my legs really hard to generate the force in my tumbling motions with a split leg. These are all also lower body exercises and stuff. So we have to actually look at the strength of the hip flexors, active flexibility, deficits of this. That also is lower body training, just in a different manner. So there's a lot of things to look at, a lot of things to go over there, I suppose.
Certainly a complicated and large topic, at least.
Yeah, it's also
and specific.
So it's kind of outside the realms of hand balance.
And last question then. To what extent does weightlifting and muscle hypertrophy interfere with handstand training? Interfere is an interesting word because I don't really think that it necessarily interferes in any way. Certainly if like there is one that like if you get absolutely jacked and you weigh a lot, then you have more to lift, which at some point, at least with very advanced stuff, will start interfering with perhaps the heaviest skills, just in terms of strength to weight ratio, as the weight ratio quite likely will start to, on an early enough stage, will begin to kind of outdo the benefits of the extra strength gained. But don't really think that it's that large of an, or like at least I haven't seen that many of that is too large of an issue. I remember like when I was in Ireland, was that in, it wasn't Dublin, first workshop I had in Dublin, there was a bodybuilder that came to my workshop and he was like proper jacked. He was fucking massive. I remember he had like those tights on, and like his quads were enormous. Like it was just like like I don't think he was competing anymore, but like he was proper big, the guy. And he was doing very, very, very good handstands. He struggled with pressing, obviously because his legs were ginormous, but he had super good range in his shoulders, like very like his alignment through the shoulders was stellar. Like it was practically perfect. He could one arm a little bit, like it wasn't entirely there, but it was basically just on the fact that like he needed to just work on the balancing aspect of it a bit more. But like his placement was good. Then like he actually had pretty decent leg flexibility as well. His straddle and his pancake was good and stuff. So
Yeah, we should probably link the Alexi brothers.
oh yeah,
Just check out the Alexi brothers from the
definitely.
older stuff.
Yeah,
When they were,
they were on
They,
the
like-
juice. I'm pretty sure.
yeah. I don't know. I don't think they ever claimed that either.
No,
But-
they definitely didn't. But
Yeah, but they are huge. They were like a pair of acrobats who would do slow hand to hand.
they were
do
in
some,
Soleil.
yeah, Soleil.
Myster, I think.
Myster and Dralion, I think.
Yeah.
One of the acts were like they were doing a 2-person one arm as well, 2-person
Yeah.
one arm planche kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they were machines. They looked basically like mini Arnold Schwarzeneggers. But like pretty close.
And it's hilarious that act. That's I think it's on YouTube. You should go check it out. It's like they both have kind of like snakeskin tights and
Yeah.
like the base has like the hair of Val Kilmer from Top Gun, and it's just
Yeah.
like massively jacked, both of them, and they're doing like super crazy stuff. Like I mean, I remember the first time I saw this and people showed it to me. It's like, wow. And like, I also thought, wow, okay, you must be that big and that strong to do this kind of stuff. And then you see sport acro guys that are just like skinny twigs doing as crazy, if not worse stuff. But
Yeah.
like, certainly these two, they were like, I mean, they're really damn good and they've done it for all their lives. They're like they didn't need even half that muscle to do everything they did, but it was, I think, more for kind of the showmanship and the look.
Yeah, there's definitely, because like you can find some of their really old stuff. I found some stuff because the interesting thing about their act was the original version of the act was the Alexi sisters, and
okay, cool.
someone coached them into it. And they took over the act. The Alexi sisters were also very high level, very sort of slow, strong stuff, doing head to head and stuff like that.
Are those the girls who walk up and down the ladder with her in
Yeah.
headstand on top?
Yeah, that, and they do the headstand on foot basing and stuff like that, and some other. It's pretty strong. Like they're quite big ladies, but they kind of like you find stuff. The younger Alexi brothers, they're just normal sized, but at a certain point in their career, they decided to go for this bodybuilding aesthetic, and like you can find them like they were strong. Like there's some video, or maybe I could find them. I remember seeing a photo shoot of them in the gym, and like the base was doing like 405 pounds on the incline. Like which immense. Like that was their training. They were doing bodybuilding and they weren't doing bodyweight training.
Yeah.
Just kind of interesting. Like you could just basically train bodybuilding, CrossFit, other stuff, and train handstands, and end up pretty beastly. You don't necessarily have to train bodyweight training with hand balance. Obviously, it's very good, but
Yeah, it's not a necessity. Like I've also seen, what's his name? Oh, I can't remember. But like, there's several people that I know that have like lifted loads of weights through their kind of handstand careers, and that have been like on super high levels. So it's not like it's not like a detriment per se. It's basically, it's like with anything. It's just more about how you do it. And like what your goals are within it, and like if those goals will interfere with what you want to do in handstands, then yes, it might be interfering. But like just the practice itself of grabbing some weights and lifting them, like sure, that isn't the problem. But if you want to micromanage like cutting and bulking cycles, and if you have like weight goals you want to get to, and like body fat percentages, like talking like kind of that type of work, then yes, then we're talking something that might interfere. But just weightlifting, muscle hypertrophy, no problem. And for most people, let's be real, like most people are not at the level of muscle hypertrophy where they're kind of so maximized that they need to invest like 80% of their life to get those last 10%. Like most people aren't there, so
yeah.
I think it's rather limited to how much like it will ruin your handstand ambitions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, same with flexibility. Like I've gotten big guys into splits. There's no real limitation. Well, actually, knee flexion can be limited by how big your quads and calves are. But it's one of those things. Like if you're going for a highly specialized kind of thing, and you want to like maximize your capacities in one zone, Well, then other things just have to go away. Everything, if you just want to be generally in shape and be able to handstand and do shapes and presses and stuff like that, you don't need to give up the bodybuilding.
Yeah, I mean, same like if you look at, like, I guess there's a reason why most contortionists are rather slim. I mean, at one point, like, body mass might be in the way of certain things moving, so that, like, if you have an enormous amount of muscle mass, it'll be troubling to do like the higher level stuff. But again, like within reasonable limits where 99% of people will traverse, I don't think that like it's particularly or stopping anything. And like at the same time, I think it can help with loads of things too. Like you just for like, let's say, just very basic weightlifting stuff. I mean, like some barbell work and some like even just arms, just biceps and triceps and just bench press and shoulder press and these things. Like it's not going to take anything away. What it will do, you'll need to recover from those workouts. So what it can do is take away time from your handstand practice. So in that sense, it might be detrimental. But it's definitely kind of a thing that you shouldn't shun, like, just because of it, I think.
Yeah, it's one of these things just on, I don't know, I do this a bit with some of my specific clients. I can think of a few off the top of my head, where every fourth phase, so we generally do our phase in 6 weeks, we're normally working on bodyweight skills, for the strength training, planches, press, whatever. But then I'll cycle them onto a bodybuilding style isolation workout with quite high reps, like 12, 15 reps, 3 to 4, like your basic body part split. And it just seems to give the body a bit of a rest while building a bit of resilience. Then it would, and these were I'd use this for people who are kind of a bit more injury prone, or a bit more prone to kind of connective tissue injuries. And by doing this, it seems to just like give a break from the stuff that's quite stressful on the connective tissue. We're deloading and following all these kind of good practices already, but just gives a longer kind of recovery period for it all to catch up. And it's turned out quite a thing, as well as get a bit of a pump on, get jacked.
Get jacked.
Yeah, you look good in the mirror. What more do you want? This is why we do this.
Yeah, just stop the handstands, get jacked, go home, the end.
Yeah. Cool. Let's end with that note.
Yeah.
Stop handstanding, getting jacked, noob. Other than that, thank you for tuning in. If you want to check out any of our programs, please check out handstandfactory.com. If you have any questions for us, please DM them to Handstand Factory on Instagram. DM them to us directly, or voice note them in on anchor.fm. Other than that, have a good week.
Yes, cheers.